So my name is Bruno Garza Cavazos, and today we're going to talk about the Triassic period. The Triassic period, one of the most common known facts of it was that all the continents that we know today were combined into a single supercontinent, which was forming like a C shape, which was called the Pangea. Um, the climate throughout this period was generally dry with very hot summers and not so cold winters. It was very rare for it to like snow during those times, and there were a lot of like snowy climates in Pangaea. Uh, Now we're gonna talk about the life throughout this period, and for example, with marine life, it was very bare. Like there wasn't a lot of marine life throughout this period because during the Permian era, if I remember correctly, or period, it suffered a huge or like mass extinction in which a lot of species were lost due to conditions. Mm, then we got plants and insects. Uh, During this period, there wasn't a lot of evolution for plants and insects. They were kept like relatively the same throughout this period, and how can I say, uh, like the only new like species in this period was the grasshoppers, which we know today. Um, Reptiles. Uh, the reptiles were very like they're probably the most common species of animals during this period. Same with Jurassic. Y'all probably gonna know why because of the name. Um, this was the period in which uh, animals evolved into what a lot of people call the true dinosaurs. For example, what can we tell? Mm, the pteraspids, which were like mammal-like reptiles, and the more reptilian ones, which were called the Archosaurus. Archosaurus. Uh, Draw like the start of it, it would look like Pteraspids. Pteraspids would dominate this era, but um, how could we call it? At the end of it, it didn't end up occurring, and they actually ended up going extinct. And the Archosaurus were the ones that were the like dominant species throughout this time. Now we're gonna go with like the last stuff, which is the earliest mammals, and they evolved near the end of the Triassic period from the nearly extinct pteraspids. And now there's a lot of debate here because scientists have a lot of trouble in like distinguishing where and like from where the pteraspids and the earliest mammals were like should be drawn. And mammals at the start were really small. There were no like no more than a few inches in size. They were also mainly herbivores. I probably butchered that, and insectivores, which by name they only ate insects, small insects. Uh, they also were partly nocturnal and arboreal, which is they were probably like they were stuck and like not stuck, but they preferred to stay at the trees rather than on the ground. And they laid eggs. That is one of the mammals' characteristics. They also oh, they also were known to have fur on them, and they had also another characteristic, which was like a jaw, if I remember correctly, a jaw with both mammal and reptilian characteristics. And that is pretty much all the like interesting or most like most interesting stuff of the Jurassic period about the animals, its characteristics, their conditions, and that was pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Now it is time to talk about the Jurassic period. During this period, the Earth's climate changed from warm and dry to humid and subtropical. New oceans flood spaces in between. Mountains rose on the seafloor, raising the sea level above the continents. All this water gave the previously warm, dry climate and humid, dripping subtropical air. The dry deserts gradually took a greener hue. Dinosaurs, birds, and rodents were considered to be the animals that inhabit this period. Crumbling land masses and island seas, sea monsters, sharks, and blue-red planktons. There are another type of animals considered of this period.
The air conditions of this period were way more different than they are today, especially for the concentration of gases, because in this period almost all the concentration of gases were 4 times better, way more better than they are today, especially the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. This was also the principal reason of why almost all of the mammals presented in this period were also more bigger than the ones that they are today. Now, the air also was more warmer, which caused that the Antarctica, instead of being just ice, was a tropical forest. And mostly all of the animals which live in this period were birds and land mammals. Now, the plants presented in this period were the ferns, the cycads, the yarns, and the tropical forest. Finally, I would like to talk to you about the characteristics of these plants presented in the Jurassic period. Well, the conifers were the most one presented, also the most higher and most voluminous ones, so therefore these ones were the most presented, almost all of the tropical forests presented in this period. Also in this period we found the cycads and the ferns. The ferns were just like plants related to the level of the ground, and the cycads were like mini trees with the same level of volume of a conifer. So we could say that these were just like mini conifers.
Hi, I am Ricardo de Vigarza Frausto, and I will talk to you about the environmental conditions and the earth conditions of the Cretaceous period. These conditions have similarities between them because they are related by the environmental conditions of the earth and the changes of the earth in that moment of the history. I will start with the environmental conditions in that moment. Well, the environmental conditions in the Cretaceous period were much more different than the ones we can see today. Because of the propagation of the species, the propagation of the plants, almost, because in that time of the history there were a massive amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. It is believed that there was 50% more oxygen in that epoch than in the actual one. There were also a lot of greenhouse gases because of all the species that were in the earth in that moment, like reptiles and birds. Also, the propagation of these species was because of the warmth in the earth in that moment. The greenhouse gases were of benefit for the warmth in the earth because they absorb the sunlight and the heat they maintain it. This heat was good for the species like reptiles because they will propagate with more facility with this heat. The warmth of the earth in that moment was much more different than the one we can see today. This warmth would have killed all the mammals in that moment, the actual mammals in the earth. In that moment of the history, the summers were much drier than the ones that we can see today, and they were much warmer. And in the other hand, the winters were much more humid, and also cold. There also was an increase in the ocean level in that moment. It is believed that the ocean level was almost 170 meters higher than the one we can see today. Today the ocean level has decreased because of different factors, and one of that factor I will mention in the Earth conditions. It is important. Well, with the increase of the sea level, the appearance of shallow seas increase. The shallow seas help to separate the continents from Pangea, the original one. I will mention this in the other part of the video of the Earth conditions also. With the volcanic activity in the Earth in that moment, there were the well, with the volcanic activity, the acidification of the ocean increased, which led to the appearance of large deposits of calcium carbonate and other minerals. And then I will start with their conditions. Their conditions in that moment were much more different than the ones we can see today. Because in that moment of the history, the appearance of deposits of valuable minerals and other minerals that are common today almost was increasing because of volcanic activity and the acidification of the ocean. The deposits of calcium carbonate began to appear within the deposits of coal, of siltstone, mudstone, porcelainite, and then the valuable deposits were appearing. Well, the deposits of valuable minerals in this epoch, like the gold, the silver, the diamond, the platinum, and other ones. There were large deposits which were buried by the fall of the asteroid in the separation. Well, no, before the separation of Pangea. This was a factor that affected the separation of Pangea also, because the tectonic plates move because of the impact. Well, increased their movement because of the impact of the asteroid. Then, the other condition of the Earth that I will mention to you is very, very important. In this period, the tectonic plates were moving from one direction to another, making the continent of Pangea to separate slowly within the shallow seas and the volcanic activity. But within the asteroid falling in the Earth, almost all the species erased from the Earth crust. Only a few birds and a few reptiles survived this massive apocalypse. With the heat wave, almost all the species of plants and animals died, because with the greenhouse gases that I already mentioned and the oxygen, which was a massive amount in that moment, the combustion of the asteroid when hitting the Earth crust was a massive one. It caused a massive extinction of much species in the Earth. And then with the combustion, there was a heat wave in the Earth, which already I have mentioned, and that heat wave killed another species in the Earth. Not much, but it also killed many. And then there was a cooling wave before that. No, I mean after that, because the heat wave put pressure in the Earth, and the pressure was liberated with the cooling wave. And the cooling wave was the one that killed almost more species in the Earth. Because the cooling wave killed the majority of the species of plants, and the ones that we can see today are the few ones that survived this massive extinction. Then, with the cooling wave, there was an increase in the ice of the poles. It is believed that in the Cretaceous period, with the lack of ice in the North Pole and the South Pole, the difference in the equator temperature and the poles was half the actual one. Then, with the cooling wave, like I mentioned, the North Pole and the South Pole gain much more ice that we can see today already. And also, with the fall of the asteroid and the impact that it caused on the Earth, the movement of tectonic plates increased and the volcanic activity also increased.
Well, hi, my name is Diego Moya and I'm going to talk about the animals and plants of the Cretaceous period. The Cretaceous period was a geological period that began 145 million years ago. Obviously, it ended about 66 million years ago. It is the last period in the Mesozoic era. It comes after the Jurassic period and before the Paleogene. Well, principally, the dinosaurs were the dominant group, especially dog-billed dinosaurs like the Hadrosaurus, such as Shantungosaurus, and horned forms such as Triceratops. Giant marine reptiles such as Ichthyosaurus, Mosasaurus, Plesiosaurus were common in the seas, and flying reptiles like Stegosaurus dominated in the sky. Well, in the plants there were, especially the one that appeared most, it was the angiosperms, flowering plants, appearing in the fossil record more than 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. Once they appeared, they quickly began to dominate the type of plant in life on land and remain so today.